Just going to have a quick chat using the Integral Futures approach and framework. You may or may not recall that the 1970s created the women's movement, which developed policy and structures relied on today to reduce many discriminations: gender, race, age, and disability. Rape has been common. However, data is unclear because up to 90% of rape are not reported, because the justice system is dominated by men, especially when reporting the intersection, where reporting intersects, and the emotions of shame and guilt felt by the survivor. So who can forget Julia Gillard's misogyny speech? I will not be lectured by this man, not today, not ever. It went viral at the time. I think it was 2013, and it's had a TikTok revival since then. Misogyny is part of actually what makes up rape culture. As a society, we were again reminded by the head of army that the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. It would seem that Australians and our armed forces personnel have walked past rape and rapists for decades, even centuries. So now is the right time to reckon with the past and to create a safe future for all. The futures tussle has been around gender and values. Men live in the values of power, entitlement, and privilege, while women seek dignity and respect. Women who experience rape also experience disrespect, shame, and guilt. At the same time, the perpetrators or rapists have their power, privilege, and entitlement values reaffirmed, especially if acquitted in a court of law or if the rape goes unreported. So an alternative future is needed. Early 2021 shows us other possibilities and faces and voices where courageous women tell their stories, seek systems reform, have a voice, and shake off the shame and guilt, assuming that is even possible. These people have inspired protests where hundreds of thousands of women marched across more than 40 locations. Women were united and confirmed rape culture perpetuates those experiences. So I'd just like to remind you of what rape culture is. This is actually a quote from everyone'sinvited.uk. So rape culture exists when thoughts, behaviours, and attitudes in a society or environment have the effect of normalising and trivialising sexual assault. When behaviours like upskirting or the consensual sharing of intimate photos are normalised, this acts as a gateway to criminal acts such as sexual assault and rape. Behaviours such as misogyny, slut shaming, victim blaming, and sexual assault create an environment where sexual violence and abuse can exist and thrive. All behaviours, attitudes, thoughts, and experiences in this culture are interconnected. That's the end of that quote. Many commentators talked about this being a women's problem and about equality. However, many see this differently. It is not the woman's to fix. Many men can actually change their behaviour, and here is how it might work. There's a few questions that may provoke. So what can an individual do to support those who step up to disrupt the business as usual? If men's behaviour needed to change to respect women, what might men do? How to disrupt the social norms, such as language and behaviours that support the rape culture? And what alternatives exist for justice for women raped or sexually assaulted? Some might think that an app is the answer, but again, just reiterating that that's passing it back to the woman to change her behaviour, track how she's feeling. So apps might be a good transition measure, but women's safety is not the end game. It's men who actually need to change their behaviour. And Monash Uni XY Lab has an example of one of these apps, Free to Be Me. It's actually about having hard conversations with men in your life. Two courageous women who've recently gained publicity for being raped had to first grapple with telling their dads and other men in their lives about what happened. Rape culture and societal norms means that the women need to do things that they never expected or imagined would be part of their life. So we've been really lucky. What a gift. Two courageous women educating men in their lives as they tell their stories. However, some may never be able to. A ritual might be helpful, either writing a letter or telling their story as others have done. As I mentioned before, there's 20,000 testimonials, 15,000 in the UK and 6,000 by Australian school students. And much of the behaviour, this is the quote, much of the behaviour described within these testimonials is the product of a culture that normalises and trivialises these actions. Growing up, we were socialised to believe that this behaviour was acceptable. And that's a quote from everyone'sinvited.uk. A written letter could be shared with family and friends or used as a first step to take to the police to report the rape, while the writing, reading and reflecting may be healing for others and not need to be further shared. Each rape and a person's reaction and circumstances will be personal. If they can be supported and believed in the first instance, other actions may follow.